Aloha and welcome to this practice WOD called Play Bootstrap Browser History. Getting to be a lot of syllables in these WODs, but I'm trying to show that this is basically taking the browser history that we did in the UI Basics module with just raw HTML and CSS, which we then converted to use the Bootstrap system in the UI Frameworks module. Now we're entering web application frameworks, and we're going to make this work in Play. Okay, so that's why there's this lengthy name for it. And before starting this WOD, be sure to have completed the Bootstrap browser history experience in UI frameworks, and then also you should definitely watch this screencast if you haven't already to understand this ICS Play Bootstrap project that we're going to be using as a template for this, and that's going to really make this WOD pretty easy to do because you'll have this this version of the system to use. Okay, so hopefully you've done both of those things as I have. And so the next thing we want to do is start the timer, and then we want to create an empty GitHub repo. So we'll go to GitHub and we'll say new repo, we'll say play bootstrap browser history, and then we'll set it up in the desktop. So we'll clone it into a local directory, and then we'll go back here and see what happens next. Following the directions in the ICS Play Bootstrap readme, use ICS Bootstrap as a template. Okay, so the way that works is if we go to this this page, what it tells us is that we want to, first of all, cd into the directory, and you can see there's nothing in there, right? It's an empty directory. But what we're going to do is we're going to set up the Bootstrap, ICS Play Bootstrap as an upstream repo, and then we're going to get that upstream repo and we're going to merge it into our local repo down here with this command. And then finally we're going to once this is done, we're going to merge the master branch of this upstream repo into our current system. And now you'll notice, cool, now we've got a fully fleshed out Play system with Bootstrap in our local directory. You might be wondering why we do this rather than forking. Just to review, you can only fork once. With this approach, you can use this as a template for as many systems as you want. Another nice thing about this, as opposed to just copying, we could have just downloaded a zip file and copied the files over. What's nice about this is that if, for some unforeseen reason, there's an update or a bug or something in this ICS Play Bootstrap, I can simply update this file, and you can get the changes into all of the systems that you're using with this template as your upstream. Okay, so there's a lot of advantages to doing it this way. Okay, so let's go back to the instructions. So we've used it as a template. Run Activator test to ensure that the templated project compiles and tests successfully. So that's always a good thing to do. You want to have some kind of whenever you're using someone else's repo, it's nice to have a sanity check to make sure that in fact what you've just downloaded actually compiles and runs. And so we're going to run our tests on it, which ensures this kind of a minimal level of correctness for this, depending on the test. Maybe if the tests are really good, it's a maximal level of correctness. But in any case, what we're hopefully going to find is that the system compiles, and so it passed. It compiled all the sources. It ran the 3 tests. The tests all pass. You can see that because of this little success thing at the bottom. So we're all good to go. We've got this templated file. So now the next thing we want to do is import it into IntelliJ. So I'll bring up IntelliJ, and I'll say import project. And so we'll import the Play Bootstrap browser history. which is conveniently selected. So we want to go to next. That's all good. And now it's got to go through a little bit of fiddling with the Scala build tool, SBT, that's what that means. And in a couple seconds, okay, this is good. We have our ICS Play Bootstrap templated file. But of course, what we really want is for this system to be called Play Bootstrap Browser History. So the way we do that is we go into build.sbt and we're going to edit this to be Bootstrap Browser History. Okay? And what you can see here, it says re-import project. So IntelliJ is smart enough to know that if you fiddle around with this build.sbt, you've got to rebuild things. So we'll indicate that we want to actually do that. And then if you go down to the taskbar line here, you can see that it's rebuilding the system from scratch, and that takes a little bit of time, but basically now it's done, and now we've got Play Bootstrap Browser History as the name of our system. I've noticed up here in the window bar it does not update it until you actually exit IntelliJ and bring it up again. So just a little bug in IntelliJ, kind of irritating, but you know, once you are aware of it, once you're aware of it, actually you can't help but notice it every 3 seconds. It's super irritating that way. But anyway, that's just the way it is. Okay, so now we're going to check to make sure there's no check style errors, which is another level of verification. So if we go to not the project structure, Philip, but the preferences, I did propeller, semicolon rather than propeller comment, and go to here, check style. Okay, and we see that ICSSE is actually loaded. Test classes are scanned. So that's all set up correctly. Usually it's not set up correctly. For some reason it's working, but you should really just continue to to always make sure that's set up correctly, because I don't trust IntelliJ to do it. Anyway, having done that, we're going to do a propeller option shift I and type in check style. And we'll include the test sources, we'll do the whole project, we'll type OK, and we'll inspect the code, and it says no suspicious code found. Okay, so that's all good. Basically, all this is saying is that, you know, the ICS Play Bootstrap repository was good. You know, we haven't really changed any code yet, so this is just making sure that things are okay. Okay, now the fun begins. We're going to edit the application so that the page displayed is the same one you created in the UI Frameworks Bootstrap Browser History Practice WOD. Okay, and in fact, you know, this is what we want it to look like. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, here's what I suggest, is that we're actually going to create 3 windows. Let's move this back to here. Okay, and this can maybe even be a little lower. Again, this is one of those situations where, you know, if you've only got a laptop, you're going to be flipping back and forth between a lot of screens, which is a little irritating, but I think for pedagogical purposes, it's kind of nice to see it all here. So what I'm going to do, and then I'll just expand this guy so that he's there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Activator Run. Okay, and so one of the things that's, you know, a little different about using the Play framework is you do have this Activator environment which is being used for a lot of tasks. You can, you know, in some cases run things within IntelliJ, but I find that at least initially the use of Activator in this external process is a little more reliable. At least when things go wrong, you're not worried about whether it's just a problem with IntelliJ or not. So anyway, I've started Activator Run. I've displayed localhost 9000. There's our, you know, our system running, which looks like the Play Bootstrap template. So now let's go in and make the changes. And in order to do that, we'll open up App, and we'll open up Views, and we'll go into main.scala.html, which is where we see kind of the template, another word use of template, but the template that's going to provide all pages with a common, header and footer. And so we'll change the title to be a history of browsers, which is what the old one has, and we'll also change the navbar brand to be a history of browsers. And then I'm going to propeller us to save that, and then what I'm going to do is go to refresh to show you that now when I hit refresh up in this window, down in our Activator Run, it's automatically recompiling. So it recompiled that Scala source, which is actually this main.scala.html, and it's redisplaying the page here. Getting live reload to work with play is a little more complicated because you basically want it to redisplay the page after things have been recompiled, not just on the file change. So we're going to talk about that a little later in the semester, but for right now, while you're kind of getting your sea legs with play, I think it's a little better just to manually refresh so that you can see how all of these different processes are interacting. We've got our IntelliJ process here, our browser process here, our activator process down here, and they should all be kind of working together in a nice way, which they are. Okay, so wait, let's go back and see what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, so I'm supposed to edit the page so the page displays. Okay, so I've got the title and the navbar isn't correct. So let's go check the navbar. And what I'm realizing I want to do now, apart from bring up this silly event window every time I display things, is I'm actually going to open up in IntelliJ my browser history project. Okay, which is going to make my life a lot simpler because now I can just cut and paste stuff. So I know I need this navbar to be updated, so let's just get my navbar. Since this is all Bootstrap everywhere, we should be able just to copy and then replace, okay, and then save out, and then refresh, recompile, and all of a sudden the history bar, here's our navbar looking just the way it's supposed to, okay? And then of course also we need this, the content, and so the content is not in the main.scala.html, it's actually in index.scala.html. And so we'll go down here and we'll say, well, there's this container that we will copy, and then we'll go up here to our index.scala and we'll paste all that in, and we'll save it out and we'll refresh. And after a little bit of a couple seconds later, we notice that everything is kind of almost perfect, except for these silly logos, which aren't appearing inline the way they are in the practice one. And so that should remind us that, oh, wait a second, in our style.css, we had to add a little bit of CSS. So let's go get that that text. Now where is that in a play application? Well, that's in the public style sheets folder. Here's our main.css. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just paste that in, save it out, refresh, and bang. Okay, everything's now looking just the way we want it to. Okay, but things aren't done yet, because now what we want to do is basically clean up the stuff that was present in the ICS Play Bootstrap system, which is no longer relevant now. And what that means is we really just want the main and the index. We want to get rid of this page one stuff, okay? Because that's now kind of vestigial code. So let's try to delete that. And it asks us if we can delete it, and we say sure, go ahead. So that's gone. Then let's go into application. This is our controllers, okay? And we can see we have this page one thing here. Now there is some vestigial code related to this parameter to the index page. You can remove that if you want, or you can leave it there. I'm just going to leave it here for right now. Another thing you could do is actually get rid of that parameter. And then let's see. And then the other thing is, so we've got our views, our routes. Oh, in the route file, which is in this place, you can see we have this get page one. Well, we don't like that anymore. Actually, you can see, look at this, cool. IntelliJ knows that we no longer have that page one method, so it's highlighting that, which is really crazy because you notice this is not Java, right? And it's noticing that this thing isn't defined. So try that, Eclipse. All right, so that gets rid of all that stuff. I think it's a good idea just to refresh and make sure, having done all that, okay, and in fact we get a compiler error from doing that, which is in application.java. We have an import which doesn't make sense anymore. So let's go to application.java. Let's click here, bring up our propeller E to get that. Okay, and then because it was hidden, we didn't notice it, so we can do a command delete to get rid of that line, save it out, refresh. Okay, and so life is wonderful again. Okay, and then it says update the tests so they pass. Okay, so just if we do a Control D to stop this, and we say Activator test. Remember we did that just a little while ago. Okay, what we're going to see is we get a bunch of errors now, and that's because of as you can see, okay? And the reason why that is if we actually go to our tests, we see that they're looking for things that aren't actually there, okay? So so in this test, we could, I guess, just look for history in that page, and then in the integration test, well, we can see it's looking for a page one. Well, that doesn't even exist anymore. And then in this test, we want to see, we'll just look for history again, okay? So let's now try to run Activator test again and see with those changes whether or not we're happier. No, we're not, because we think that we're still looking for a home page. Let's try. Let me do something here. Activator clean, because it's not finding a module, and I'm pretty sure it should. So let's try Activator clean, Activator test. Okay, so this is something I'm a little unhappy to see happen, which is that for some reason our system, the Activator system, kind of got out of sync with the current state of things. And you see, I think the key is that when you run the thing, if it immediately says I cannot find a module, and you've not done it, obviously this module is something you don't know anything about, and then it gets a bunch of errors. So things are kind of inconsistent, and so what you can do to fix that, in fact, you can combine things on one line. So we could say Activator clean test to do the clean and the test at once, and maybe that's just good housekeeping until Activator can actually keep its act together. So this is kind of like your standard make style of stringing together different targets. So in future, it might be good, just as a matter of practice, to say Activator clean test to make sure that you avoid these kinds of problems, and then when there's test failures, it's actually due to you. Anyway, it's all working good now. Took us a couple more minutes to figure that out. Final thing, make sure check style passes, so we can do a propeller shift I, run check style over the whole project. And no suspicious code found. Commit your finished system to GitHub. So we go back to GitHub, and we say finished WAD. And just to show you that, in fact, we have a .gitignore that comes down with our template, which should be correct. So that's all good. So we'll commit and sync that. And okay, so we're done in right around 19 minutes. So we'll call that a 19-minute WOD. I think this is a really nice WOD for just helping you start to manipulate templates, do some simple changes to them, make sure that when you download the template you can verify that everything runs, you make your changes, you can run the tests again, update the tests to conform to your new program. This is just the general sequence of events for most of these small scale system exercises. So I think you run through this a few times, get really good at doing it fast, and you'll find that you'll be well suited or well set up for your future wadding.